welcome in.
Oh, hi. No. Sorry, were we talking about something else?
Well, you just got here. We weren't really talking about anything at all. I was kind of mostly interested. How are you doing? Are you all right?
I don't know. I kind of feel out of it, sometimes when I'm engaging, with a conversation, let's say, I kind of have trouble keeping track of where the conversation is going. And sometimes it feels like a lot of conversations are going on at the same time, but it's like a conversation where you're not really hearing one side of the person talking. And the thing is, I love eavesdropping, so that should be right up my alley, but sometimes, I don't know, it feels like you're having a conversation, but really it kind of feels like you're not. Does that make sense?
I have a really grave diagnosis for you, and I'm almost scared to share it, but I really, as a sort of mental health practitioner, I really have to provide this to you. You might have seen the 2023 film PLAYLAND in theaters.
In theater? Well, let's not be generous. This seems like the kind of film that goes all over the place, let's say, and that not a lot of people necessarily get a chance to see it. But I'm sure it'll be on streaming, which means it'll be piratable very soon.
Yeah, so for the large swath of our audience that probably doesn't know and hasn't seen it, what is PLAYLAND?
And debatably doesn't give a shit. PLAYLAND is an experimental-ish queer film that, okay, I'm going to describe a film to you, and it's going to sound so sick. So PLAYLAND is on the last night of a notorious Boston gay bar that closed in 1998. So before most of our audience was born. They're the ghosts of the Overlook Hotel, but if they were in a gay bar instead, come out for one last night of going over the history of this whole bar. And like the Overlook Hotel, you're only given these snippets of moments in time, and these ghosts of a queer past that will disappear with this bar. But will they ever truly disappear? And then what you get is a 72-minute movie that has an intermission. Which is to say, great concept. Didn't feel like it had enough to really land it. And I don't want. I hate coming down hard on weird, cool, queer indie art and stuff, but I don't know.
This is such an interesting Uno reverse situation with Castration movie where
I know. I'm paying the piper.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. It's pretty. I mean, okay. So we've covered what PLAYLAND is ostensibly about, and PLAYLAND, yes, it is a real gay bar in the Boston area. And that was super big.
Yeah, and it does use a lot of so part of the reason why there's not, I say experimental and not non-narrative or whatever is because while all this is going on, the soundtrack is kind of pretty consistently just, I assume, archive audio from news reports, from interviews, Some of them sound kind of contemporary, like people if not present, at least within the last 10, 15, 20 years, recounting times at Playland. Some of it sounds more, interviews with people at the time of like 70s activist moments or whatever.
Right.
And the big there's a couple big problems, but the biggest one to me is that none of that really gives form to any of the characters we see or any of the events we see. But rather than kind of doing the experimental thing of like everything is meaningful, but you don't have the key to it, kind of unlike Color of Pomegranates that we just watched as well for our patrons. Pointing at the camera. The problem is that it just kind of leaves me wanting to read the archive stuff instead of watch the movie.
Right, yeah. I mean, I will also say that, like, as much as I liked the movie and kind of let it wash over me in a sort of slow cinema kind of way, it did also put me to sleep in the specific regard where all of the different scenes and vignettes just kind of, like, it doesn't let you in as much as it seems to want to, and everything just feels like an in-joke that you don't really get.
Yeah, no, I remember you saying that right before I saw it, because you ended up seeing it the week before I did, because I actually went as a little Valentine's, part of the Valentine's dinner, me and my boyfriend did. And I was like kind of worried, but kind of like, that sounds like something I'd still enjoy. But then as I watched it, I really understood what you meant, which is just like, there's so many little details that feel like Easter eggs for you to go like, oh, but because I'm not from Boston or know a lot about this gay bar in Boston that closed in 1998, or who any of these people are.
Yeah.
I don't. Outside of Lady Bunny playing a pretty small role, I think.
Yeah, Lady Bunny shows up, and she's all too scarce, I would say. It's kind of like Björk in the Northman. It's kind of just like she's there and then she's gone. Yeah, it's a little tough. It's a little impenetrable.
I will admit I would probably be a bit more charitable if there wasn't an intermission, because I got up to use the bathroom at one point, and then I came back and there was an intermission, and I like turned to my boyfriend and I went, this movie is 72 minutes long. This movie is the exact same length as Meet the Spartans, and Meet the Spartans doesn't have an intermission. It has a gag reel of like alternate takes and deleted scenes to meet the runtime, but it doesn't fucking stop the movie like 15 minutes from the end to be like, we gotta kill time.
It's audacious. It's kind of like, how do you not have enough content to fill up at least like an hour and a half with ephemera from, and like, I do think that kind of speaks to the movie's failings in terms of just like the sort of artistic palette that it reaches for to kind of like paint these pictures for us. Like, they're just not that, they're almost not abstract enough, really.
Not abstract enough is a good way to put it. I think for something that is swinging for such an experimental register, it kind of was just doing all the hits of like, overused phrase, Lynchian cinema. Like, a character snaps their fingers and disappears. A door swings open, and then you see a scene, and then it swings the other way, and it's a different scene, and it swings back, and it's the previous scene. There's ghostly whispers. There's just like, there's just so much stuff that I've just like wanted more from that like kind of got me excited, and then I realized it's like all of the more like bold air quote experimental non-narrative stuff feels lifted, and all of the like meteor queer history reviving these ghosts and giving them like one last night to like play out all of these old tragedies and gossip is like, it feels like that's the thing that the film is like more nervous about putting forward.
Yeah, and I wish it was more, I don't know. Again, I'm agog at like the lack of just the short runtime for something that is so clearly like, I know the content is there. I know they could have made something that like more effectively imparted the like history and personality of this place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do, because it's like that's a lot of like how I kind of felt about it, especially because it's like the actors and actresses and the like small things like there's the DJ character. There's a character who shows up. She's a DJ. She's like a vinyl DJ. There's like an interview like audio clip that's played that I assume is of the same person that her character is based on, talking about the first time she DJ'd. And how she was just like, oh, I've got I know like every song that the DJ normally plays, and like, cool, get up there, and like getting up there and realizing, oh, I don't know what the fuck any of this equipment is, and like having to learn it on the fly. And like her actress like really like plays the character really well, like puts a lot of personality into these like small things of just the way she lugs in the vinyls, the way she goes like no requests when someone comes up and asks her something. There's just like so many of these like small details in it, and it's like we see a photo of of the real person, but it's like, okay, like who is this person though? Like, do we have is there any stories about like them, like anything about like their relation to the bar, any like big events that like we can recreate? It just kind of is like the idea of all these ghosts and this entire history of the bar collapsing on one night and again in a very Overlook Hotel way I really like, but it doesn't feel like anything we are shown is like the kind of ghost that would be present there.
Yeah, and it doesn't, weirdly enough, it doesn't scream queer joy to me to have these really kind of oppressive vignettes that are like very kind of dour in tone and very surreal.
Yeah, I mean, and even that, like, I could kind of understand, but that ties back into the, like, feeling like the film isn't really... I feel like the film is taking this concept, but afraid to go past its obvious references. Like, I keep jokingly, like, you know, calling it the Overlook Hotel, because that's very clearly, like, a framework for the film itself. But, consequently, it doesn't seem like it knows how to execute that same hauntology, but in a positive way. You know, it feels like it's like, oh, what if we did The Caretaker, but for like a gay bar? But it doesn't know how to like execute, like, okay, well, how do you do that? Like, how do you do The Caretaker, but a gay bar? And even Leland Kirby has done stuff like that. He did a whole concept album called The Death of Rave about mourning the loss of the rave scene, where he took all these like big rave hits and just like so distorted and filtered them down that they were unrecognizable. I think to me, part of why I feel so critical of it is because I can think of like, you know, the gay bar here that I have a similar love for, and I would probably have to do like, you know, a deeper dive history to figure out a lot of this stuff, but I should be able to have watched this film and like connect that, right? Like, I should be able to think of my own gay bars I've been in, gay bars I've grown up in, histories that I've learned from talking to like old bar queens at the bar, and connect that to it. But it feels like it really only works if you're like already primarily familiar with the source material. Like there's stuff that I'm like a little less picky about. There's obviously a lot of overt references to Bostonian city geopolitics, especially related to like gentrification and racism. That stuff is like textually placed in the film in a way that makes it very clear what it is being referred to. Where even if you don't know the details, you know, you can kind of square it with your own awareness of your own city's politics.
Right.
But it doesn't feel like that carries into the portrayal of the bar itself, or like the space within the bar. It feels like the film wants to talk a lot about the gentrification and the forces that led to the bar shutting down around it, a lot more than what occurred inside the actual bar.
Yeah.
Which doesn't work for a film that takes place entirely inside the bar.
And also, the bar has since been demolished. Like, not like, or rather, I don't know what set they're dancing in this movie and hanging out in, but it's not the original Playland bar.
I assumed it was just a fake, because they say that the bar was destroyed in 1998, so like I assumed it's just supposed to be like a set that they made from photos and reference photos, but it doesn't even look like because you see a few videos of the bar, and it doesn't even really look like the bar itself. Like it does, like the videos we see don't really match what we're shown in the film. The bar it shows us is like a dilapidated building that's falling apart, which is like, okay, if that's what the bar looked like, it probably shouldn't have been a place people were hanging out at. You got fucking holes in the rafters, bro.
You got the ceiling falling through and fucking hitting people. And it's a hard movie to critique, obviously, just because of like the type of movie that it is. It's very gestural.
I also didn't like that immediately after the intermission, to really feel egregious, there's an extended like opera scene that like a minute into it I was like, dog, come on. Come on, this is killing time. Come on, you don't have anything else?
Padding.
How are you having padding in this, bro? Break it up. Make up. Write some more conversations for characters to have.
Have somebody say something.
Yeah, have somebody say something instead of just like look off to the corner and go, "It's raining," and then they pull out a jukebox coin and then they go, "Does anyone have a cigarette?" And then they light the cigarette with the coin, and then there's a thunderclap like in Blue Velvet, and they disappear. And then a short queer person comes in and dances backwards. And
You're like Jay. You're like a Simpsons writer for queer culture.
Yeah.
This should be a Simpsons bit.
Yeah. I mean, you joke, but like, part of basically what led to Little Teeth was just me and Rory just making fun of Looking.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that piece of shit show?
Yeah.
That's why there's a fake show in Little Teeth called Seeking Same. Seeking Same is just specifically not just like a Looking parody. It's like that type of like gay queer media in general parody. But like that's what inspired it, was me just being like, this show fucking sucks. I hate this show. I thought it was better than, but I say this with a hearty recommendation, Rapture in Blue. Which is a short, but honestly not that far off from this length, film that is also a very, very like David Lynch inspired like queer movie. It's like a queer horror film. But I would say it's a lot more explicit and it wears its influences a lot messier. So I still think it's worth checking out. It's on Tubi that's how I watched it. But I liked Clubland. I liked Playland more. I think Playland had a better grasp of the visuals.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I really appreciate and I really respect the archival research and like the actual like documentary aspect of the film. Like I said, Playland really made me want to like actually just learn more about the actual Playland and the history of it, which was frustrating in its own way, but at least, you know, gave me something to like really, really sink my teeth in. Rapture in Blue more so was like, I'll see another film by this director, but like it's all right.
Yeah. All right. That's one to check out, maybe.
What would be your better than?
Well, mine alternately is not one to check out. I think that in talking about and discussing and considering Playland, we have to take a look at all of queer art and the history of queer art, and understand that mediocrity or boringness, however you want to put it, is not the worst sin. Sometimes even queer people can make harmful queer art. And so Playland, I think, is better than Roland Emmerich's Stonewall.
I always forget that he's gay and made that.
Roland Emmerich is gay and he made bad movie Stonewall and I didn't like it. And
I think it should be noted here that everything Stonewall is really the anti-Clubland and really shows how much a swing but a miss is better than just throwing the baseball bat away.
Yeah.
Stonewall is too long. It's offensive.
Deeply.
It has zero interest in gay people's lives. That is a film where, like, I made a bunch of jokes about scenes that were going to be in it, and 2 of them were actually in it, including a scene of a guy, like, crying while getting head and going, there must be something more to life than sex and drugs. And also, like, I think I had some joke about, like, Marsha P. Johnston, what are you doing here at Stonewall? And then there's, like, literally a Marsha P. Johnston style character who shows up after the riots.
Yeah, it's bad. It's deeply ahistorical, deeply unstudied, uncultured, disconnected from gay
everyone
culture.
knows about the, like, complete erasure of, like, trans people of color in that film. Not enough people know that film also argues that the police raid on Stonewall was a good thing. Because it goes, actually, there was crime going on there. So it's good that the police showed up to stop that from happening. And they saved this poor gay boy from the Midwest from having to suck an ugly old man's penis.
Ooh, what could be worse?
Also, the mafia is like a crossdresser. The mafia head is a crossdresser, just for some reason.
It's definitely like boomer liberal brain writer situation across the board. Yeah.
It did give us that great scene though when the cop who's portrayed as good is trying to like pump the like abused trans woman sex worker character for information. And he just, like, shows her a bunch of, like, hate crime bodies, and then he, like, shakes his head and is like, what's wrong with you? Are you all stupid? Is that part of being gay?
I fucking love that scene. I love that line read.
I love when we all watched that as a group, that scene came up, and we all, like, cheered, and so I went back to, like, because I wanted to, like, record it, because this is back in the day of Vine, and we saw that there was still an hour and a half left of the movie, and like people started like leaving. People just started being like, "Fuck this."
Oh man, it's a gauntlet. Stonewall is a drinking game. In fact, we need to develop the official Film Critters Stonewall drinking game.
God, I'd have to watch it again.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Maybe for Pride Month this year, we'll do bad gay movies.
Oh, that could be really fun.
I think that would be really fun. There is also like another Stonewall movie that's completely fucking unknown, but which ends with God, the Bare Naked Ladies song about being a femboy.
Awesome! Awesome!
Just like an insane film. I found it because I found the like soundtrack on cassette, and I was like, "What the fuck? I've never heard of this movie." And I like found a tape of it, and we watched it. And I remember like the only thing I remember about it is that at least the main character is like clearly a like Sylvia Rivera like analog. Like at the very least, like one of the main characters is like a trans woman, or a '90s like offensive version of a trans woman. But yeah,
at least it's something.
No. Yeah, I think for Pride this year we should do evil gay movies.
Bad, just
bad
awful,
gay, awful queer cinema.
But yeah, what is Playland worse then for you?
Oh, that's so easy. It's so easy that I'm like, let me think of one that's more specific. Oh, okay, easy. Again. That easy. I think Playland is worse than A Virus Knows No Morals,
wow.
Which is a vignette style, extremely offensive, dark AIDS comedy that is from like 1986, like really early into it. It's is it A Virus Knows No Morals. It's Rosa Van Braunheim, who's most famous for doing the movie It Is Not the Homosexual Who Is Perverse, but the society in which she lives. So the two things I will say about it and why I call it a dark comedy that is, I like it a lot, but is also very difficult. One, let's do this as the bad part out of the way first. There is a really racist scene in the movie. I watched it at Northwest Film Fest, the same place actually where we saw Playland.
Northwest Film Forum?
Yes, sorry. I always want to say Fest because of SIF, because of Seattle International Film Fest. But yeah, Film Forum. So I do want to say they warned us of it, and they gave us the context of, it's a German gay film, and it is a scene in which they are specifically spoofing like ethnographic film, which was a really big documentary trend in the 80s in Germany, which also tended to be racist, but it does kind of just come off really racist. And it is like one of the only scenes with black people in the film. So that is the warning. That is a scene that you can kind of skip over if you watch it. Mm-hmm. But it is satire of all the responses to the AIDS epidemic that kind of just fires in all directions. Not necessarily in a like South Parkian both sides are bad way, but kind of like a mixture of like very, 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 like very, very much so just like fuck the medical establishment, fuck people who are like explaining us, fuck the media, fuck this, fuck that. But also being like, gay people are still people, and people with HIV and AIDS are still people. And so there's like a character who like, it's just like using the fact that he has AIDS to like constantly be like, you hate me to like his boyfriend, to like get him to just like do things for him and like baby him and take care of him, even when his boyfriend also gets AIDS. There's like a gay bathhouse owner who just keeps being like, no, we can't put a condom machine. They're just not going to use them. We shouldn't even bother. There's scenes of nurses like taking bets on which patient in the HIV ward is going to die next. It's just like all shots fired in all directions. condemning, like, it makes a lot more of its political condemnation aimed, obviously, at, like, reactionaries and the people who exploit people with HIV, but it is also kind of, like, points a finger at people who Rosa feels are being hypocritical in their handling of it. Also, has an evil Fujoshi in it.
Awesome.
Like, if you've ever seen Raspberry Reich, very similar sort of, like, to the evil Fujoshi in that film. So there must just have been something in the air of, like, radical bisexual women who were like, it's actually fucked up if you don't have gay sex with me. If you, as a man, don't have gay sex for me to watch, it's actually really problematic of you.
And it is.
And it is.
Damn.
But yeah, that's what I toss that out there. Kind of an obscure film, so that's why it's like I'm going to shout it out. And it also does a sort of like vignette history of queer stuff moment.
Okay.
What would be your better than, or sorry, worse than?
So I thought that well, actually, my original choice for the movie that Playland is worse than was going to be Tropical Malady, but I have decided that's too easy because people more people know about Tropical Malady than you know.
Yeah.
So I've chosen a film. Well, let's Playland is worse than 8888 by Isaiah Medina, which is a 2015 Canadian experimental film that I watched, and it's very it's almost like an anti-ASMR video. There's like a lot of whispering, and then they like kind of intercut. The editing is like really fast and frenetic. A lot of the subjects are like hyper zoomed in. You don't really see that many like people throughout the film, but somehow you still get this like impression of essentially the experience of poverty. It's very expressive filmmaking, and it's kind of like repetitive, and it's like drone-y. And it's, yeah, I highly recommend it. I think it gives a more clear sense of place than like a film like Playland does, just because I think that Playland is a little bit hobbled by not being like kind of on location and realized in that sense. And 8888 feels like it's filmmaking that's done from inside the experience of the film, if that makes any sense. Like, it's a film that is like kind of creating its own exoskeleton, because it's like it's a meditative film about poverty where the guy fucking making it is experiencing poverty. So it's, you know, so the movie makes itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating piece of work. I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube available. If not, it's on Mubi, I think.
Oh, okay. No, that makes sense. I was going to say I'll look into it because it's been on my watch list for a minute, but I can't remember. Honestly, it was probably you who had told me about it in the first place.
Yeah, I might have mentioned it on, an episode here or there. Yeah, that's one that I checked out on a whim, and I was very, very blown away by it. It like, somehow, like, it's a really, really good, it's like really exceptional filmmaking from somebody who's clearly so young, because he just like knows how to juxtapose and how to like point the camera at certain things to like impart, it's hard to explain without seeing it in action.
Yeah, no, that sounds really, I was looking at some of the reviews of it, and this sounds extremely up my alley. Yeah, okay. So there, you at home, you have 5 film recommendations.
As many as
well,
5.
Except for Stonewall. I guess you have an anti-film recommendation. You have Beware. No, I guess you have the other Stonewall. So you do have 5 Stonewall. You do have 5 film recommendations.
Yeah,
and 1 film warning.
Content warning, bad. Well, thanks for coming in, Jay Bearhat, and getting to talk a little bit about, this experience that you had. I'm sorry it left you feeling so decentered and, off kilter.
Yeah, well, I feel like sometimes you just gotta, like, go out there and realize that it's better for bad art to be made, because at least it's art that's being made. And then you can be like, oh, I can do better than that. And then you don't have to, because you recognize that the art was not as good as it could be.
Yeah. It's all about motivating yourself to not do stuff.
It's all about motivating yourself to feel better without making the effort of putting something in the world.
That is pretty much the highest state of being there is.
Yeah, that's why gays have a death drive.
You have pretty much achieved the third formless jhana, and you have completely exited the dharmic circle of karma. So you're pretty much free to go. You don't even have to pay for the session. I mean,
Gay people will be like, I know a spot, and take you outside of the fourth cycle of dharma.